Hey guys, so today we are looking at another Mongol related video, just making sure my audio's picked up. So today we're looking at the real ghost of Tsushima. Is that how it's pronounced? Tsushima. Um, I know mainly the video game. I never actually played the video game. It came out a few years back. But I do remember it was pretty big when it came out, and apparently I think the premise was you play as a Japanese warrior and you fight off the Mongols when they're invading Japan. So I think, again, I never played the video games, I just saw clips and trailers. So yeah, either way, apparently it has something to do with this because the so I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I don't really have much else to say other than we'll see if my vague knowledge of the game comes into play here. So, if you want to watch the original video by Kings and Generals, the link is down in the description down below. And if you enjoy my content and want to help me out in any way, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. I'd appreciate it a lot. Thank you. And with that said, and now without any further ado, let's get to it, shall we? Let's learn about the real ghost of Tsushima, the Mongol invasion of Japan.
The fierce resistance on the beaches of Hakata Bay and the cataclysmic encounters with typhoons, later known as the kamikaze, stand tall in the popular memory of the Mongol invasions of Japan both within and outside of the country. Having covered the course of the two invasion attempts previously, we will now cover the first clash between Mongol horse archers and samurai warriors, and their spirited defense of the islands of Tsushima and Iki. By the way, we have a podcast covering the history of the Mongols. The links are in the description. The island of Tsushima is situated between the southern coast of Korea and the Japanese island of Kyushu. Only a short distance from Korea, Tsushima was a prominent base for Japanese pirates to raid Korea, known as Wako. As Tsushima itself was mountainous with little arable land, many turned to providing for themselves on the sea, either through fishing or making the short trip to Korea. In the 13th century, the raiders found Korea a particularly vulnerable target, as the kingdom suffered continuously from a far more fearsome enemy, Mongol horsemen of the Great Khan. Over a 30-year period, Mongol forces—
Yeah, I do remember Kings and Generals kind of bringing it up in the Japanese invasion videos and also in the Korean ones about the Mongols, about Japanese piracy being a big issue. So yeah, that makes sense.
repeatedly invaded Korea, and the Korean King Gojong was forced to seek refuge on an island. During this destabilization, Japanese pirates attacked Korea several times, though these attacks ended by the time King Gojong made peace with the Mongols in 1259. It is these attacks which first brought the Japanese, and Tsushima itself, to Mongol attention, alongside rumors of the great wealth of the Japanese monarchs. When the new Mongol Emperor Kublai Khan began sending envoys to Japan in the 1260s, demanding they accept his heaven-ordained rule, Tsushima's close proximity to Korea made it a natural stopover for the Khan's messengers. However, the Japanese government, the Kamakura Bakufu, under Hojo Tokumune, repeatedly refused to even see Kublai's envoys. One returning group of frustrated envoys in 1269 captured two fishermen from Tsushima, Tojiro and Yashiro. The two were brought all the way back to the court of Kublai. There, the most powerful single individual on the planet entertained two humble fishermen, showing off his grandeur and demanding that, upon their return, they would tell Hojo Tokumune to show him proper respect, and that the Khan wished only to have the Japanese king at his court and to bequeath his fame to posterity.
That is quite... I'm not even sure if I would call that a power move. I'm not sure that's the correct way to use it. But this does feel like quite a unique set of circumstance that he would bring two random fishermen here to essentially flex on them. You know what I mean? Like, look at how great I am. Now go back and tell the leader of your government how great I am. And all it seems kind of weird. Essentially just flex on two random guys and then make them go back and tell their leader how awesome he is. Interesting diplomatic strategy from Kublai. I must admit, I've never seen that before.
On returning to Japan, the fishermen found no more success than Kublai's official envoys did. The continued diplomatic offences were not forgotten, and Kublai's pretensions only increased with the declaration of the Yuan dynasty in 1271. With the fall of the key Song dynasty stronghold of Shenyang, preparations soon followed for an invasion fleet against Japan. On the 2nd of November 1274, an armada of perhaps 20,000 Mongols, Northern Chinese, Jurchen, Khitans and Korean soldiers and sailors aboard nearly 1,000 ships set out from Happo on Korea's southern coast. Tsushima was where the hammer blow would strike first. By the evening of November 4th, the defenders spotted the Mongol fleet off the Tsushima coast. Lacking naval powers beyond their small pirate and fishing vessels, the Japanese had no way to harry the Mongols at sea. Tsushima was at that time controlled by the So clan, whose head, So Sukekuni, was the deputy shugo, military governor of the island. According to the Hachiman Gudokun, a Japanese source written soon after the invasion, on Tsushima there was a shrine to Hachiman, the Japanese god of war. Tradition holds that on the day the Mongol fleet neared Tsushima, a fire broke out at Hachiman's shrine, a foreboding omen. The fire was extinguished, and white doves were seen gathering on the roof of the shrine. As doves were the messengers of Hachiman, Sukekuni interpreted it as a warning from Hachiman, for why else would the god set fire to his own shrine? Some modern authors have...
I'm very interested in learning more about Asian mythology. I mean, we spend a lot of time in history around Europe and the Middle East, mainly Christianity, Islam, and whatnot, that, it's easy to forget that eastward there was, Buddhism and Hinduism and, other beliefs. And I feel like as we're approaching more eastward, I'm really looking forward to just learning, because I've heard about Japanese mythology and that it's very wild, very, very interesting, and yeah, I really want to learn more about like what gods did the Japanese, and Korea and China, like what gods did they believe in, and like how did they worship them, how many were there? I mean, I do know a little bit about like Chinese mythology, like the Journey to the West, the Jade Emperor and Buddha and whatnot. So I have touched it, but I'm not gonna pretend that I'm really well versed at all. So yeah, I would like to like definitely learn more about like their theological ideas and religion. It just seems interesting to me, especially after after this example, So I gotta check OBS to make sure my audio is actually still working.
Interpreted this as the doves having caused the fire, perhaps from incendiaries tied to them, and hence the opening salvo in the Mongol attack upon the island. Either way, news reached Sukekuni that a massive fleet was approaching. Sukekuni rallied his forces, some 80 mounted samurai and their retainers. He led them through the night over rough terrain to set up on the beach of Komoda and prepare for the dawn. As the Yuan fleet neared Komoda beach early on the morning of November 5th, Sukekuni sent a small vessel out to inquire as to the purpose of their arrival. With the Bakufu having rebuffed the Great Khan's envoys repeatedly, the time was well past for talk. Sukekuni knew chances of victory against such a massive force were non-existent, yet lined the defenders of Tsushima up for battle all the same as the smaller enemy landing craft neared the shore. The primary weapon of the samurai was the bow, their valuable and iconic yumi, with which each warrior was highly skilled. Like the Mongols.
Yeah, he did mention that. He did mention in the past, Mongol invasions of Japan video that the samurai were incredibly well versed with the bow, and were even like more than a match for the Mongols. And we do know about the Mongols. Horse archery was a kind of like the backbone of their armies, So the fact that the samurai of Japan were that skilled that they could be comparable to the Mongols did catch my attention when we were watching those videos. So yeah, the Yumi, huh? We haven't really touched Japanese history, so I keep apologizing that I keep pausing, because I actually am really interested, because this is the furthest east we've ever gotten in this channel, in terms of studying. Because, like I said, I usually cover a lot of the Middle East and West Europe stuff, so, I am very fascinated by, East Asian culture. And I do know that the samurai sword, I don't know what the sword is officially called, what brand, but it kind of has like a curve, you know what I mean? The samurai sword. So I'm wondering if he's going to explain that, and what exactly made that different. But the Yumi bow, that's interesting.
The samurai fought as mounted archers, though their maneuvers on horseback could not compare to steppe nomads born into the saddle. The wealthiest samurai were well protected in their colourful and distinctive yoroi, though on a poorer island like Tsushima, few of the 80 samurai gathered by Sukekuni would be so well armoured. For sidearms, Sukekuni's warriors had their single curved blades, the predecessors of the famous katana, while the remainder of his forces...
Katana. That's what it's called. Duh, I'm sorry. It's really late here, forgive me. The katana blade, yes. Of course. I know what a katana is, I don't know. That's embarrassing. That's really embarrassing on my part, but yes, the curved blade.
Were armed with little beyond spears and naginata. In contrast, the forces sent against him were varied, commanded by the Mongol general Ho-Tan. Most of the infantry Ho-Tan threw against Sukekuni were Chinese and Korean levies raised by the Khan, armed with spears, large wicker or bamboo shields, and protected by cloth and gambeson-like armors. As per Mongol tactics, these troops considered most expendable were sent in the first waves, soaking up enemy arrows, while the more valuable Khitan, Jurchen, Turkic and Mongol horse archers disembarked from the ship.
Interesting, because when we did cover the invasions of Japan, kings and generals did mention that Kublai was very reliant in these invasions on the levies of Korea and China. And I remember questioning, like, why are you so dependent on these newly conquered territories? Like, he only really he really recently conquered China and Korea, and he was already like using their manpower and stuff. I was kind of like, don't you want to ease into it? But this makes more sense now. He needs human meat shields, essentially. He's using them as human meat shields to, absorb arrows and to preserve his more unexpendable units. That makes sense. Alright, I get that.
Ships. Generally lightly armoured but highly experienced, their composite bows made them a deadly counter to the samurai. The sea voyage, and need to lead their horses from the landing craft, meant they could only slowly get into their formations, preventing them from immediately trying to outflank their enemies, as was their usual practice. While the Mongols readied their horses, the Korean and northern Chinese troops were sent against the samurai. As per samurai tradition, battle began with a whistling arrow sent high into the air. Per Mongol tradition, drums marked the start of their own advance. Sukekuni's skilled archers took a heavy toll on the foe marching up the beach. As the Yuan forces neared them, challenges for single combat by the samurai went unanswered by the Chinese and Koreans, marching as—
Oh yes, I forgot. I think he mentioned that single combat was a pretty big part. I'm pretty sure Kings in General said that, right? When we were covering the invasions, that the samurai, you know, had a thing for single combat like this, like challenging. So it's kind of funny. The Mongols and the Koreans and Chinese don't seem to care about that. So yeah, you definitely see a type of culture clash, right? And again, the Mongols are definitely slower because their whole thing is being a cavalry-based army and moving and outmaneuvering their enemies. So seeing how slow they are is pretty funny, you know? And again, only 80 samurai though. Like, I know that samurai are a well-known unit in history and a very fearsome one, a very famous one. But again, just those odds, like 80 versus— I don't think he said exactly how much the Mongols have at the moment, but I'm willing to bet it's in the thousands. Point is, just 80 is insane.
they were behind rather un-samurai-like large shields. Unused to the pressure and greatly outnumbered, Sukekuni pulled his men back to the tree line, where the Yuan advance was slowed. Here, the swordsmanship of the samurai made itself known. One of Sukekuni's closest comrades, Saito Sukisada, brought down several of the Yuan soldiers and one senior Mongol officer. Standing tall over the fallen officer, Sukisada shouted threats at the Mongols, calling on any who dared face him in battle. The Mongols responded with arrows, 3 of which pierced the armor of Sukisada's chest and ended him.
Oh wow.
In the tradition of the history of the So family, seeing the doom that awaited them, So Sukekuni loosed the remainder of his arrows into the Yuan and led one final futile cavalry charge into his foe. In the end, the defenders were slaughtered, leaving the island open to the Mongols, and over the following week, Tsushima was overrun. Towns were burnt.
Brave final stand, but again, those odds were too much. 80, just 80 guys that... Yeah. There's only one way it was ever gonna end, right? But still, it definitely is, dang. At least they went out fighting, right?
Many were slaughtered, and a number of women of the So family committed suicide lest they fall into Mongol hands. A worse fate awaited the prisoners. Both Japanese and Yuan sources attest that wire was threaded through the palms of the prisoners, mainly women, who were strung along the prows of the Yuan ships as a gruesome necklace.
That... Dude, that's insane. That's so brutal. Oh my goodness.
The 13th of November, Tsushima had fallen, and Hotan ordered the fleet to the next island, Iki. Here, the deputy shugo, Taira Kagetaka, had had time to prepare his forces, sending word to Kyushu for aid. After sending women and children to Hinotsume Castle, he took 100 mounted samurai and their retainers to meet the Yuan fleet on the northern beaches of the island. Kagetaka's forces held—
Alright, so the last island had 80 samurai. This one has 100. Still though, like the numbers, man. That isn't enough to stop this, you know?
held them off for a few hours, slowing down the Yuan landing, but were unable to prevent it. As the Yuan foothold grew, Kagetaka had no choice but to withdraw to Hinotsume Castle in the evening. Here, the small wooden walls would not long provide shelter against the warriors who had taken Shangyang. Kagetaka sent his daughter, Katsurihime, with a single samurai to take word to the Bakufu. and prepared for a hopeless last stand as the Yuan encircled the castle. Women and townspeople within the castle joined in the defense, hurling what they could at the enemy. Catapults and Mongol arrows made short work of those on the walls, and when Kagetaka attempted to lead a valiant sally through the gates, he found the Mongols pushing captive Japanese before them, wire threaded through their palms, leaving cover for the Mongolian.
Oh, that is so messed up. Dude, that is so messed up. The Mongols, man, they are ruthless, these guys.
Archers. His numbers dwindling, Kagetaka led what was left to the castle. As fire began to engulf the fort and his remaining men gave them what time they could, Kagetaka watched his family commit suicide before he too joined them in his final act of defiance.
Oh my gosh.
Iki was thus overrun, and slaughter and other atrocities followed. Katsurahime never made it to shore, her boat coming too close to Mongol arrows. Survivors, such as Katsura's samurai bodyguard, brought news of the terrors on Tsushima and Iki to the rest of Japan. In popular tradition, upon learning of these horrors, the regent, Hojo Tokimune, stated that this would be the most momentous occasion of his life. When asked by a nearby priest how he intended to reply to the Mongol invasion, Tokimune shrieked "Katsu!" victory. As we covered before, the
And Hojo really did prepare Japan for the Mongols and succeeded in that, so again, victory in the long run, right? At least against the Mongols. Japan afterwards had a lot of issues, but at least they weren't overrun by the Mongols.
Mongols would not find victory on the shores of Hakata Bay, where stiff Japanese resistance and an unexpected storm pushed the remnants of the fleet back to the Yuan realm. Undaunted by the efforts of this small archipelago, Kublai threw another, even larger fleet against Japan after he had conquered the Song dynasty. In 1281, his forces returned to Tsushima and Iki, though little information is provided on these second encounters other than the fact local defences once again fell quickly. One detail provided is that Saito Sukesada's son, So Moriaki, continued in his father's legacy and fought the Mongols on the beaches of Tsushima. Another is that the crying of children in the mountains of Tsushima alerted the Mongols to the presence of families hiding there, resulting in the deaths of 300. Ultimately, the invasion of 1281 proved an even greater disaster than the first, and thousands of Chinese, Mongols and Koreans met their end in the sea off the coast of Japan. The local defences on Tsushima and the Japanese islands continued to be maintained during the following decades for the possibility of a Mongol return, which was threatened but never materialized. Emboldened, Japanese pirates once more began to threaten the coastline, continuously attacking Korea throughout the Yuan and Ming eras, and in time ranging as far afield as Malaysia. On Tsushima and Iki, memorials stand to the brave samurai who stood against unstoppable odds, local heroes who gave their lives for the defense of their islands, small garrisons against perhaps the most fearsome army in history. March of Empires is a free-to-download medieval...
So that was really cool. Definitely ripped to those brave samurai. And once again, I really love learning about this invasion in particular, because I've known about the Mongol invasions of Japan ever since I was a child. When I was like 5 or something, I had heard and learned at first about it. How like typhoons had blown the Mongols off course and stuff. So it's definitely something that's been in my life for a long time, like a bit of knowledge I have. So, you know, it's definitely an interesting... Of all the Mongol invasions, I find that one to be the most interesting. Its invasion of Japan. And, yeah. Overall, I'm gonna end the video right here. Another great video, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, when we cover more. Bye, everyone.